demonstrating what does happen. And the Geological Survey Department has Volcanic Division has reported 129 encounters, investigated 129 encounters between 1953 and 2009. And those encounters are really clustered in the last about 30 or 40 years. There's no particular reason for that in terms of geological events. What that really reflects is that our aircraft are getting up to an altitude and at a frequency and at locations such as over the Pacific coast or Pacific rim, where these events happen more often, so that we've been getting into a lot more exposures. And just recently, this spring, there were 2, I believe, yellow alerts listed. Those yellow alerts are something that the USGS came up with that I'll talk about in a few moments. Go to the next slide, please. There's an organization, next slide, there's an output, a product that is, we can go to the next slide. This is just an attribution to the source of this. This actually came from one of my friends in the FAA. We'll hold there for just a moment if I can get back to remembering what I was just saying. Anyway, the captain was that we just saw the attribution to, was involved in the safety aspects of flight, and his production, his slide sheets were volcanic hazards to aviation 101, he called it. And I have not found any indication of the B-25 bombers that were destroyed in Mount Vesuvius. Partly because I really haven't had that much time to study that. But the next time we came aware of the problem was 1980, and that's the anniversary that we are talking about now. So we're going to see the next slide. That was the Mount St. Helens eruption, which was May 18th, 1980. Now, my personal history with Mount St. Helens is that I grew up about 50 miles south of there. I spent at least 2 summers, maybe 3 summer encampments 1 week on the north shore of Spirit Lake, which is just north of Mount St. Helens, which is completely eradicated by the blast on that morning. There were 56 people killed. Let's go to the next slide. In that eruption, it was an extremely violent, extremely rapid event. This is a slide that shows the development of the volcanic cloud on that morning. And you can see at 6 minutes, it was at about 20,000 feet. At 10 minutes, it was about 60,000 feet. At 28 minutes, it was all the way up to almost 90,000 feet. And it extended quite a wide expanse to the sides. On Sunday morning program this week from CBS, there was a brief segment in there about Steve Olson's book called Eruption, which I read, which I have a copy of on both disc and in soft and paperback. Just sent a copy of that out to my grandson and nephews in Washington State, and it's a fascinating book with a lot of history about the Pacific Northwest and the lumber industry, but a very detailed explanation of what happened on that morning and and the various people that were killed, the various people that survived, the helicopters that went in and rescued people. Next page, please. So anyway, this is the situation we're living with, the Pacific Ring of Fire. And you can see that, well, the southern hemisphere is pretty safe on our side because it's pretty much, there's not a whole lot of air traffic out there. Over around the Indonesia area, up along Japan and the Kamchatka, the Aleutian Islands, it's a very active zone. Pacific Northwest, there's a number of events, and in Mexico and down through the Latin America. So we've all heard some instances of this. This is actually, it's an interesting, it's a Boeing slide relating to the 747s. Let's go to the next slide. So Ring of Fire facts, 1,500 known volcanoes. The majority are remote or unmonitored. So there are 55 to 60 eruptions a year. Ain't that something? 8 or 10 of those reached flight altitude. The North Pacific routes move 15,000 passengers a day, and I think this might have been either in the 80s or the 90s that this particular data was given. Air freight revenue, over $10 million a day, and 100 volcanoes are en route, and 3 to 5 of those erupt per year. So let's go to the next one. Here's one of those, 1989, Mount Redoubt in Alaska. Go to the next slide, please. So it shut down the airlines for a time. Whoops, we lost a lot of information on that slide. Anyway, this is information about the flight 867. I'll try to reconstitute the information from memory. Don't know why that happened. It's
okay, Gary, let me try again. Let me try to pose again.
Sure, and I'll keep on talking about it. Anyway, Flight 867 was a KLM flight that departed Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, made a fuel stop in Anchorage, and while climbing out at about 25,000 feet, it reported that there was a cloud in front of it. A few moments later, it requested deviation to the left to avoid the cloud. And a few moments after that, like 56 seconds after entering the cloud, he lost all power in all 4 engines. So he declared an emergency at that time, basically did a roundabout and tried to exit the cloud as fast as he could. Anchorage, of course, gave him full support. He made multiple restarts on the engines. It turned out that the problem was that the volcanic ash had glassed over some of the sensors in the engine, and there was faulty information going to the flight controller that shut down each one of the engines. Well, at some point, each one of the engines would start, and of course, when the engine shut down, the power goes from the generators to the battery, onboard battery systems, and there's a momentary loss of power. Flight instruments reset, and you have to go through another cycle. And then the engine starts again, and then it goes out again 3 times, I think it was, before they finally got a stable power situation, and they did manage to fly back to Anchorage and land. So I guess I'm going to bring up my own copy of these charts.
Oh, it's back. It's back.
Oh, great. There we go. So I managed to get this part of the story out. I forgot. There later on, or in another place, there is a safe to fly criteria that has been evolved, and it's been assumed that you could safely fly through air that had up to 2,000, I think it was milligrams per cubic meter. It was 2,000 some register per cubic meter. But subsequent analysis has disputed that, and at least one paper is arguing that the flame out may have happened with only 200 milligrams per meter cubed. So anyway, that flight was successfully concluded. There were 245 occupants, no fatalities or injuries. And there you see a picture of the very specific Boeing 747 406 M that was involved in that incident. And that's the island, that's the mountain just southwest of Anchorage. And at that point, it had a couple of bears wandering across the foreground. So, okay, let's go to the next slide. I think that's a fairly quick one. I might have already talked about much of it. Yep. Yeah, there was a total aircraft damage in that one instance of $80 million. Replaced all 4 engines, multiple other systems. Okay, let's go to the next one. Well, you're busy there, Ken. I'm really impressed. So what is it that shuts an engine down, or what effects does the volcanic ash have on aircraft engines? There's a classical engine. Well, of course, the first thing is just the abrasion and erosion of the compressor section. Then there's, you can clog air filters. I don't know where the air filters are, but I know that we do take a lot of bleed air off for passenger and pressurization and other functions. And each one of those systems, of course, has filters. It can block the fuel nozzles. There have been instances where they have been glassed over. The temperature sensors were the cause of the 867 problem. And it can clog your oil. It can melt things downstream and damage your power turbines. Let's go one more item. My friend in the FAA, Al knows him, Joe. His single experience with volcanic damage was that at the end of a flight where there was apparently very minor effect, the maintenance crew decided to wash the engine down. Well, that turns out to be the dead wrong thing to do, because what they did is they washed all the sulfuric acid down into to the sumps and all low points in the engine. Then they had extensive corrosion resulting from the washing down. Let's go to the next page.
Is it Gary?
Yes.
Jim Kowalski has a question.
Okay.
Do you want him to
go ahead. Sure, go ahead and unmute him and let's see what it is.
Okay.
Hi, it's very interesting. Question is, what was the time delay between the volcano eruption and the flight disruption? Never.
In the case of the Mount Redoubt, the mountain had been erupting at a low level for some couple months before that, and there was a volcanic alert on the flight area. The particular day, I believe it was only about 30 minutes from the time of the explosive or the plume that was developed until they got into that flight level and went through the.
And what was the location of the volcano?
It's in Alaska. It's I would say from just my own personal experience, it's just off the end of the I think it's the Hook Inlet, the Cook Inlet, which goes into Anchorage. I would say that's 50 miles, but it might be 100 southwest of Anchorage.
Okay, thank you.
So it was time enough, it was altitude enough for them to get to 25,000 feet or more. And it turns out that Don Crawford's wife is Sharon, is a former United airline captain. So she might know the timeline to get from takeoff to 25 to 40K feet. But okay, so let's go ahead to the next one. There is a picture of what damage was done on some flight. I don't know. I think that might have been one of the flights across the northern U.S. After Mount St. Helens, because I think I saw similar kinds of things at maybe Aviation Week about that time. Next slide. That's of course the first stage compressor. And on other parts of the aircraft, it can garble the radio transmissions. That doesn't help. It can infiltrate the cabin and set off fire alarms. That also happened on Flight 867, I believe. It can plug up the systems that monitor the airspeed and the pressure and so forth, the pitos and static ports. It can badly scratch the landing lights, the windscreens, sometimes making them opaque. It can interfere with the navigation and other equipment, and completely off the air, outside of the aircraft. It can cause damage or cause slippery runways and subsequent damage there. There have been stories. There were stories I know after Mount St. Helens, all the way out in Minnesota, of vehicles being damaged by the ash. Okay, so next slide. So Boeing put out a set of recommendations prior to around 2011, after the Iceland airport, the Iceland eruption. The first thing to do is to reduce thrust to idle immediately and turn the auto throttles off. To exit the ash cloud as quickly as possible. A 180-degree turn out of the ash cloud using a descending turn is the quickest solution. And turn on the engine and air and wing anti-ice devices. Interesting. Active solution here. Turn on all the air conditioning packs. Okay, I wondered if you wanted to button it up. If possible, start the auxiliary power unit. They didn't have any comment about that on 867, what I had. If the volcanic ash reaches the flight deck, the crew may need to use oxygen, presumably also the passengers. Turn on the continuous ignition option on the engines. Monitor the engine exhaust gas temperature. Fly the aircraft by monitoring airspeed and pitch attitude. And there's number one rule to all pilots in all emergencies: fly the airplane. All other things can wait. And the ALPA further recommended two additional things that somehow slipped off the bottom of the slide. Don't worry about it. They were really good ideas. I don't know where they are. They were so obvious that they'd been omitted by Boeing in the first place. Okay, the next slide. So here's the unpronounceable eruption. This is the Iceland eruption. So this set of slides was indeed created after 2010. Okay, so the next slide. This is still the airline captain safety note. Okay, so here's a typical volcanic observatory notice for aviation, or VONA. This one happens to be for Mount Shishaldin, also in Alaska, or the Aleutian chain. And this happened this spring or winter. The date there was January 19th, I believe. And it went to a color code of red, which means hazard for aviation, do not approach, basically. So anyway, this is all the information that is provided to pilots or to the FAA or air traffic controllers. And they issued a SIGMET for this one. Next, this is the first half of that document. Let's go to the next slide.
Is it Gary Robert has a question? Do you want to?
Oh, sure. Let me just say that that the standard protocol in our Aero alumni meetings has been very disruptive. We interrupt one another anytime we get a chance and find all kinds of other subjects. If you happen to want to talk about black holes, we probably got a couple of people who would love to join you. Okay, go ahead, Robert.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was just surprised that the stuff hadn't reflected the famous incident in 1982 with the British Airways flight over Indonesia.
Okay. Yes, that was in the in some of the research that I stumbled across, and I didn't follow it. So, what do you know about it?
There's actually a video. The interesting thing is very similar to the one that you described, except that it was at night, and so they didn't see a cloud. They said their first indication was what looked like St. Elmo's fire, and then they lost all 4 engines, and finally got them restarted. It started to climb back up, and they stalled again, and the pilot basically said. There's a classic statement, and I'll read it to you. They said, "Masterpiece of understatement."
Okay.
Gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We have a small problem. All 4 engines have stopped. We are doing our damnedest to get them going again. I trust you are not in too much distress.
Was this guy British or what?
Yes, he's British.
Okay, carry on.
Anyway, I just said it goes way back, and there actually is a video out on that, and the screen was opaque, and once it got close to landing, they realized they couldn't see.
Right.
So they're looking out the side window in an attempt to see how to land at night.
Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah. There's not the the volcanoes don't have any perspective on day or night, do they?
Nope.
Okay, I wish I'd pursued that one a little further. That's a very interesting episode.
Yeah, there's a Wikipedia and a bunch of other stuff on that, so it's interesting.
Uh-huh. Okay, so this is the VONA, the continuation. And at this point, the volcanic cloud height was up to 20,000 feet. I'm not sure how that observation was made or what hour of the day that was. But in January in Alaska, it was pretty much likely to be in dark. Okay, next slide.
So Gary,
Yes.
Jim has a question.
Who?
Jim
Okay.
Kowalski.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned Vesuvius. Was that tongue-in-cheek, or in other words, was that a historical or a modern reference?
That was
Just
a 1945 episode, I believe.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All I know is that that the airline captain who was on the safety commission was presented that in his slide. He said that 25 B-25, I think 25, 29, a bunch of B-25s were on the tarmac and were damaged by soot.
Oh.
And I omitted one of the slides from this particular presentation of Subic Bay. In Subic Bay, there was a DC-10 sitting on the runway, or on the airline storage area, and the weight of the ash that fell on the airplane fell predominantly, well, fell equally on all horizontal surfaces. And there are more horizontal surfaces back further, more moment of inertia, more moment on the airplane than normal. So it tipped up. The tail pushed the nose up, and it pivoted around the main gears, and there it was sitting.
Okay. I just was wondering, you were thinking about ancient Romans with their flying machines.
I don't have any reports on those either. Okay, so the upshot of that, your question really feeds into this one, because not only are there many areas that are not monitored by human observations or scientific observations around the world and around that area, around the Ring of Fire, but also people don't see it at night. So at the date of this event, of this presentation, at the date of this presentation that the safety officer gave, the GOES satellites were functioning with the right satellite bands. And one of the things I wanted to put in here and just didn't find her at the last minute was the sensor bands that are used in various weather satellites. So one of the primary bands that is used for detection of volcanic ash is the silicon dioxide absorption band. And silicon, I said that again, sulfur dioxide, the SO2 band, not SiO2. So sorry about that. So anyway, that previous set of GOES satellites included that band. The next three, whichever ones those may have been, did not include those. And there's been debate since that time of whether they should be or not. Of course, the favorite reason for not doing it is because it costs money to put them in. It might have cost $10 million to add per vehicle that capability. But then over 200 million had been lost in aircraft damages in the previous 15 years from that time. Divide that out, and it's more than $10 million a year. And happily, we haven't had an instance of any loss of lives, but clearly, timely volcanic ash reports are really critical. And so So those weather satellites of ours have a lot of other uses besides the commonly spoken of, those commonly spoken of, which I'm saying, which is somewhat of an understatement. Okay, next slide. So here's his facts. It's more than 1,300 volcanoes are not monitored by volcanologists or seismic instruments. You only find out about it after the fact. And many of those active volcanoes threaten international routes around the globe. So the geostationary satellites are kind of the primary purpose, or the primary advantage of doing this. I don't know if they have enough precision to be able to detect actual altitudes of the debris or not. You may need to have a LiDAR detection to sound out the depth of, or the altitude of that kind of debris, that kind of contamination. But satellite monitors can provide timely warnings globally around the clock. And so it's kind of a pitch for Raytheon's and the other industries. Northrop Grumman Space Division has multiple sensors of similar kinds. And of course, our membership includes a lot of employees of those areas, a lot of specialists in that kind of area. So this $10 million budget that's being requested for per satellite really can be paid by many other industries that rely on the data. They're saying that it can be done by tenants for the instruments. That's a good start for the effect. Either the satellite owner or the tenant can further monetize the output from their instrumentation. Okay, next slide. Brief questions. We're at slide 18. That's about halfway through this darn thing. Does anybody have a brief question? I don't think Ken sees any hands going up.
No, there's no hand, no question. Oh,
Robert,
1 second.
in the 1982 incident, Wiki wrote, quotes, 15-to-1 glide ratio for the 747. That would provide, yeah, that's probably fairly close. They might be able to do a little better than that, but of course, volcanic damage to aerodynamic surfaces could also hinder that. Probably not greatly. Any other questions?
Don't see any.
Well, let me just say, just do a kind of a off the cuff multiplication here. So if a plane encounters a debris field at say 30,000 and flames out, that's 6 miles. So 15 miles or 15-to-1 glide ratio gives them up to a 90-mile cross range possibility. And any pilot that would volunteer to do that deliberately is probably not one I want to fly with. Next slide. Well, here's another one from Yoshiyama. How much variance is there in the chemical composition of the volcanic ash plume? We'll find out a little bit about that on May 28th, perhaps. One of the people who presented slides that I found and was access to from the FAA is John Fisher. Let's go to the next slide. He presented this standardization seminar in 2011 after the 2010 eruption. And between him and and Jeff Pushell and a couple of other people doing the satellite surveys, there is a chemical composition that can be said, and I have no idea how much variation there is. I barely understand what the content is. Okay, so anyway, John Fisher, next slide.
Jim Kowalski has a question.
Okay.
Jim, do you want to say something?
Okay, yes. The question is, you've spoken of airliners. Any civil air problems from the volcanoes?
Not many civil aircraft get above 20K, and I think most of the damage happens above that kind of elevation. So, yeah, if you fly into a cloud, of course, you got the hazards. And actually, I think some of the people I knew in Minnesota had problems with their engines in cars. So the ash does tend to come down. You saw in Mount St. Helens, it actually got up to, well, the plume got up to 90,000 feet. I don't know that there was any hazardous content in the plume at that altitude, but anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to just let you read that one and go to the next slide. I'm afraid to try it, but it's Ijalophojokul. I give up. That's the dates of that particular incident. You probably remember that that several aircraft were damaged, and many aircraft were grounded. So I happened to talked with Don Crawford and Sharon last night. I asked Sharon if she had ever experienced any flight disruptions or reports on this, but she retired before 2010, so she was not flying at that time. But they were in Europe, and they knew people who got to spend extra time and extra money in Norway and Sweden as a result of that. I don't know if their contribution was included in the 1.8 billion. Okay, let's see what Ken's got. Ken, what you were asking a question?
Yes, Gary, can you hear me?
Sure.
My question was, in the H-67 in Alaska, how far was the airplane from the center of the volcano?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, what was the radius? I mean, how far away was it from it?
Well, all I can tell you is that my wild guess of how far it is from Anchorage, from the takeoff point, I gave you that somewhere between 50 and 100 miles. The volcano is some distance off of the shoreline there, so maybe 30 miles.
So all the damage on the
think,
airplane was accrued around 30 miles or thereabouts from the volcano itself?
I don't know.
Oh.
The plume, apparently the eruption had started, I think, 30 minutes before the fact. And so however far that plume can go in 30 minutes, remember that slide from the
right
from Mount St. Helens, and in 30 minutes it was at 90,000 feet and a very large lateral dispersion.
Yes.
So
just curious with the amount of damage that took place, how close it was to the plumage.
If anybody wants to do some research on that, I'm fairly well tapped out by it, except for the fact that I intend to put on another factual program on May 28th with John Pauly. Mm-hmm. Not with John Pauly, I'm sorry, John Fisher. Okay, so anyway, this is one of the charts that was developed primarily from satellite data, I think, over Europe after the Iceland explosion. And they were talking entirely in this chart, and I think the next one, about flight level 0 to 200, which is 20,000 feet in their parlance. And nope, let's go back to that one. I think there is another slide that comes up with a map a little while later. But so you kind of see the national borders in there that kind of help you to see what that faded out landmass looks like. And I really don't see in this image where that plume is indicated. But anyway, let's go for the next one. Yeah.
Robert has a question.
Robert who?
Robert.
Yeah, I just was remembering that later, one of their comments is that the Iceland incident was actually worse because the volcano was erupting under a layer of ice. And so the mixture of water and ice in that initial ash plume actually made it worse.
Okay.
For aircraft.
Of course, because all the sulfur dioxide would be turned into sulfuric acid. Yeah. So.
Oh, and in response to one of the other comments, NOVA and some other programs have a whole series on volcanoes, and the composition of the volcanic plumes can vary greatly.
Okay. Yes.
Especially the amount of sulfur in it. It just depends on where it is.
Sure. And you don't know until you see it.
Yep.
Okay, so from what was the bright yellow shade in the map? Light yellow shade. Let's go back to it. Ken, can you use the pointer on your screen pointer on it? Can you outline the yellow portion?
Yellow portion?
He's saying that there's a yellow portion of the on the chart.
Is this one with the cursor?
Probably.
He's a mute. He can explain.
Okay.
Yeah, it is the same.
Okay, so yeah, they do try to color code it. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I see it now. It's pretty extensive area there.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is this? This is March 5th. So, what? March 5th? No. Oh, that's, you got to remember. You got to remember that this is European description of dates. That's day, month, year. It makes a whole lot more sense than our month, day, year. So that's 3rd of May, 2010. So, I don't know.
Not relevant.
Ask Eurocontrol. Okay, let's go to the next two slides. I think we kind of flagged at that one. So there's some ash deposit on the nozzle guide vane. Pretty nasty looking stuff. Next. So ICAO as an international volcanic ash task force, and they included a volcanic watch group in the group in their function. Okay, next sheet. Okay, so there, yeah. So there are 9 standards, and of course, or nine centers, and of course, they're not standardized. And so the NAAs would be National Aeronautics Associations or administrations. And each country has its own responsibility, so it's pretty volcanized. Yeah, the ash clouds are not well quantized at this point, which is, I think, the function of lower altitude satellites rather than the geo satellites. But it's hard to have a constellation that's big enough to characterize that in real time. Let's go for the next slide. Yeah, there's the other image that was the chart. So this is like a concentration chart, and I don't remember, can't quite read the quantization on the various levels there on the colors. But you don't want to fly into the black for sure. Probably don't want to fly in the red. And you're kind of taking your chances even going into the gray. Next. Or was the gray worse than the, oh well. Okay, so they were going to meet again in 2011. They're wanting to standardize the warnings and improve the fidelity of the cloud forecast, and especially the movement. So how much of a clearance do you want to give between a volcanic cloud that was identified 3 hours ago and your flight path that's going to go through there 3 hours from now? So the concentration level, that was something I mentioned once before. Nobody's really done a research on it that I know of that that goes with the susceptibility of the volcanic ash. In fact, this particular, let's go to the next chart. This particular presentation was intended to try to develop a standardized measure and test. And it was actually done in the icing division of FAA engine tests. They were trying to come up with a standardized test to subject engines on the test stand to. And so the upshot of it is that the volcanoes are such sporadic events and so erratic, so variable. The clear answer is you don't design for it, you avoid it. So anyway, let's open up the story for questions. All comers, I think. That is the last slide, isn't it, Ken?
That's right. That's
right.
Yeah, I saw Guido
Looks like
is
Ken's
online.
trying to talk to us. Ken, are you trying to talk to us? I see. Looks like you're muted. You might be able to unmute yourself at this point. There's a button on the lower left.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
No, Ken Pauley.
Okay, Ken Paul.
Yeah.
Well, let me.
Yeah, let's unmute all.
Unmute. Okay. Sure.
I don't think we have any intruders. So.
Okay. Thanks, Ken, for doing that. I want to talk to Gary and thank him very much for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. It was a lot of information, and I don't think a lot of us think about these things very much. How serious they can really be, and a little bit not confused, but wondering why we haven't interacted with more countries dealing with this problem.
It's hard to say. The current administration doesn't want to talk to anybody. but what, I don't know. Hey, it's not easy to coordinate between the various agencies, and when I was working at Air Research, we were having to be certified both in the JAA for the European certification requirements, JAR, I guess it is, and also the FARs. And I have to say that my interpretation was that the JARs were more quantitative and more factual based than the FARs, because the FARs were basically developed, from the 30s on, before we really quantized a lot of the risk factors and similar things.
Yeah.
So, and I actually, we did also sometime work on something with the Japanese, which was another interesting story. That was with Tier W, though, come to think of it. But anyway, any other questions?
Hi, Gary. You mentioned early on, I think, about one of the recommendations was that as soon as you hit one of these clouds, you turn on the anti-icing systems.
Yeah.
I guess for the wing, I understand that's a heated thing usually, that you heat up the heating edge, get the ice to go away. Engine, is that a similar thing in the engine, that certain features, the compressors or whatever, the blades have heating in them?
I think there is heating in the cowl, in the inlet, in some instances, but
yeah,
I don't know.
But the engine itself, the damage that was caused by this volcanic stuff was internal to the engine, not on the cowl, right?
Right. My interpretation of that was that when you have this problem, you sacrifice the airplane for the passengers, and you basically turn on all the systems that ingest air and put them at risk in order to maximize the capabilities of the airplane for the duration of the flight. So, anybody else has any better interpretation?
So,
what's that?
I said, if you don't save the airplane, you don't save the passengers. So, yeah, save the airplane first, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I have another quote that you might find interesting on the 1982 incident, because this was a night after they were trying to actually land in Jakarta, because they couldn't see.
Oh, who's that?
I don't know. They tried to make an ILS approach, but the vertical was not operating. So the first officer was using the DME equipment and established checkpoints on altitude at each DME step. And the quote from the captain was, "The landing was a bit like negotiating one's way up a badger's ass."
Okay. Picturesque.
Picturesque. Very funny. Can I ask Ken a question?
Sure.
Ken, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Not the Polly. It's Ken Polly talking to Ken. Can I hear you, Ken? Can you hear me?
You talking to me?
No, I'm talking to Ken.
I'm Ken.
Oh.
We have three Kens. We have Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ken Polly and
the one Gary, that was hosting you and helping you with a video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A question I have for you is, can your format here on Zoom be, can it be a flash drive PowerPoint presentation? Can that be on Zoom?
Yeah. You mean PowerPoint? Yeah, that's what Gary has here.
Offline, could you call me or email me how that's done?
Okay.
I said something about the 1910 Dominion meet, and it's a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be that was going to be last month's program at the Aero alumni,
That's
but
right, Gary had one.
got grounded.
Yeah, we're grounded.
So,
Oh, Gary,
what
Mr.
are we having for
Wishiyama.
lunch? That's usually the end of this Aero alumni session.
Oh, Gary, Mr. Wishiyama has a question.
Okay.
Hi, Randall. Mr. Wishiyama, hello?
Okay.
He posed a question, but I don't know. Did you see it? He posted a question.
Hey,
I'm sorry, I missed it.
oh, I'm really disappointed. Looks like Chuck is gone.
The question was about data from Mount Pinatubo.
Oh, don't know what. Okay, carry on.
And the other thing that somebody might want to think about, because that was actually minor. Think what happened because they actually think this will go again because now they have the stun of Krakatoa. It may go, and the picture of the screen in Norway. I always wondered, well, was that some weird vision? No, that's what the weather actually looked like when he painted it because of the volcanic ash.
Thanks for muting that, James. Okay. Hey, Jim Martin, how are you doing? Jim Martin, are you there? Well, the other one that I always like to hear from is Guido.
I'm sorry, Gary. I was getting ready for a board meeting at 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
So I came in late, and I'm not sure what the subject was. It seems, from what I'm just hearing now, that it was it the engine failure due to the ingestion of ash from Krakatoa or something like that. So I'm sorry I missed it. So I apologize.
No, the subject was really the effect of volcanic ash on aviation in general. And it was triggered by the fact that May 18th, Monday, was the 40th anniversary of Mount St. Helens eruption, which did have substantial effect on aviation across the northern tier of the United States.
Oh, I see.
But that just triggered me to wonder about the subject and try to find some speakers. And it took too long to get the speakers lined up, so so we're going to have another event on May 28th. I think the timing will be like 3:30 in the afternoon, which is another test case here. You know, we've been trying to find out when is convenient time for meetings now that we're at home and working there. Now the Aero alumni group is primarily retirees. And so, so working hours are pretty flexible for us, at least.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometime after we wake up, that's right.
And so, so we've had a tradition of going to lunch after the Aero alumni meeting. And that's the basis for an 11 o'clock start hour and a 12 to 12:30 conclusion going to lunch. So that's why I asked, what's for lunch?
Yeah, right.
Hey, Gary, Jerry Lockenauer again. Let me add something about volcanoes. They can be really violent, not affecting more than just aviation. And I don't know if you guys have heard about the year without summer. So in 1816, it was called the year without summer in the Northern Hemisphere because of the eruption of, let's see, what was the mountain?
Yeah.
No, it was Krakatoa. It was, Pandora, Pandora, in Dutch East Indies. And it put out such a plume of volcanic ash around the whole northern hemisphere that there was cold temperatures throughout the whole summer in North America and Europe. And they said there was frost. They had frost in Philadelphia in August.
That was, and was there anything else significant about that era that you recall? I know that there's been talk about that at various times, but
No, just the fact that the climate, everybody talks about climate change, and yes, climate change, it changes all the time, sometimes dramatically.
right.
So the planet can do some pretty amazing things.
Yeah, and of course the Yucatan Peninsula meteor was allegedly the cause of the demise of the dinosaurs, with a long-term worldwide winter.
Yeah, yeah, that one I've seen the kiloton megatons of TNT equivalent of that meteor, that asteroid impact.
Mhm.
And I did a little back of the envelope back in 2012, I think it was. If you took the entire nuclear arsenal of the planet, Russia, US, China, everybody's nukes, and you put them in one big heap and you lit them all off at one time, you'd have to multiply that by 1,667 to get the equivalent energy released from that asteroid impact. So we'd better hope we don't have one of those again.
Yes. And that's been the subject of one of our ongoing sets of meetings with the technical meetings, and actually Ken has taken over more of those, where we've had on the anniversary of the Sunya, the Russian meteor. There's been a conference about how to alleviate the risk of meteors, and so
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to figure out how to do something about that if we see one coming.
I wonder if I'm not seeing everybody's names here. I thought I just saw Lem Wang pop up a moment ago.
Gary,
Yes?
maybe you've already talked about this since I got in late, but is there any research or any technology, any engineering being done on maybe some type of filter or anything that would diminish the ingestion of ash on an engine?
Well, the first answer about that is that any filter, of course, reduces performance, and the frequency of a volcanic eruption that you can't avoid is extremely low. And so there's no benefit, no cost benefit advantage there. And so the basic answer is you avoid them.
You fly around.
Right. Or you ground the airplanes during that period of time. It's, it's terrible disruption, kind of like the COVID disruption, but it is finite and limited in time too. So it's, that's something we can live with.
Oh, Gary, Jim, Mr. Martin, he just left, but he said he could not respond to you because he is using a desktop computer that has no microphone. He cannot speak out.
All right.
He can listen to you, but he cannot speak out. But he has to go.
Okay.
And I think the Jim Kowalski has something to say.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to go back over again the situation when they washed the engine. Can you go through the chemistry of that?
Yeah, there were no slides about that. That was an offhand comment by my friend Joe, who's in the engine division of the FAR, the FIDO, the Flight office in Long Beach. And in the instance that he was involved in, the maintenance crew observed the dust on the engine and washed it off in place. And subsequently, the water acidified the sulfur dioxide. He didn't know the complete set of chemistry that was involved, but but the obvious thing is that it's substantial. There's always a sulfur content in most eruptions that I've ever heard of, and that's it.
Well, when sulfur dioxide dissolves in water, it becomes sulfuric acid. I can tell you that.
Right.
So if the sulfuric acid, of course, would not be good for the engine.
Right.
That's the when you put sulfur dioxide in water, if you bubble it through there, you're going to get H2SO4.
Right.
I thought you got H2SO3. And then something else changed it. That's what I remember from high school chemistry.
Right, and that's what the simple chemical equation would say. You got to have oxygen come in somewhere, in addition to the. Oh, wait a minute! No, it's H2. So there's actually you're bringing in two high. Oh, no. But you get H2O. Yeah, H2O. That's right. You get only one oxygen per two hydrogens. Right. That old mental operation of equations sometimes goes astray. But yeah, it's sulfurous acid. Okay.
Right. There's Don Crawford.
What's that?
I say there's Don Crawford on my screen. He's big.
Yes. And Sharon, I didn't see her once.
She just got back from the shopping.
Oh. Okay, well, she's keeping her priorities straight.
I'm interested in the aviation 1910 Dominguez Hills meet. Is that going to be next month then?
Sounds like Ken's willing. Looks like Ken's departed too. Don't see Ken. I don't. Oh, that's his chair. Yeah. We'll ask another time. That has been on the agenda. The issue is.
No, I didn't depart.
Okay, he's been reluctant.
Ring the bell.
Enter Zoom. Okay. So you up for doing that next month?
Are you talking to me, Gary?
Yes.
Yes, I'd be grateful to, very happy to do it if you fellows would like to see something about the 1910 Dominguez Air Meet. I have a PowerPoint presentation I gave to the American Aviation Historical Society, and they enjoyed it, and it's about 45 minutes to an hour. Is everybody in agreement?
Yeah.
Good.
If so, I'll be prepared. Maybe Ken, if you could email me the instructions how to do a PowerPoint here on Zoom, I appreciate it very much. I don't know how to do it.
Okay. Well, I sent you the cautionary comments from Shikar, our LA section chairman here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good set of instructions. I think I've sent them to almost everybody on this Zoom session. Anyway, they're primarily aimed at enabling a person to host a meeting. And particularly when you're hosting a meeting, you want to be a little bit cautious about some things like giving access to your desktop. So
I read those Wall Street Journal articles. I think everybody has the warnings of using Zoom, and I'm prepared, but I'm not going to be a host in this case. I'm from the outside.
Right. What we do,
if you're
what
hosting,
we're doing is
yeah.
the AIAA has a business subscription, a business level subscription to Zoom.
Yeah.
We can host meetings of over 300 people. And so Ken generally served as our, what they call the meeting host, which is the person that initiates the session and controls the entrances and moderates. Usually they moderate, but in Ken's case, he's willing to just do the technical background while other people are making the presentations.
I see.
And
Well,
we really have to say thank you for that.
That's,
I mean, it's really worthy of a Zoom applause here, you know.
for sure. Well, ask Ken right now. Are you willing to do this for me? This Ken, it's a PowerPoint presentation, and I don't know that it has no it has no restrictions that I know of using in terms of the pictures that I've used. They're general domain, so let me know if there's any problems
Okay.
making one.
Now,
Okay.
one of the things that they also alert us to is that Zoom offers the opportunity to record sessions. And the hazard there is just what you alluded to, that essentially all speakers need to agree to the recording session. So in this case, I've made that agreement. I don't think anybody here has anything to hide. It'd be good if we just outright said at this point that we authorize by there's a thumbs up on the bottom of your screen, I believe, that would say that you're willing to have any content that you were involved in recorded and published in YouTube or the AIAA.
Yeah, I couldn't agree to that. I'm not going to
Okay.
permit
So,
that.
so we won't record your session.
Right.
Okay. You prefer not to be recorded in this session?
No, I don't want the PowerPoint presentation being recorded. It's I have a couple of books out on the Dominguez Airmeet also that are copyrighted. So
okay.
If we can do it without it being hacked, I'd be glad to give it. But that's the only caveat for that. Yeah.
Hey, that's to a layperson that may sound like a cautious or very limited kind of thing, but hey, there are good reasons for restricting content or comments in some of these events. Well, anytime you're doing this kind of thing, you just don't want everybody coming into your every part of your life. So anyway, so Ken, I don't know what that upshot means there in terms of any recording we did at this session. I think that one thing that can be said is that the entire presentation can be open.
Okay, Gary, this is this. Because I think Ken mentioned this for his future slide presentation, but today it is only you are the presenter, and according to our headquarters, only the speaker needs to give the permission, unless if some attendee he somehow feel very, very uncomfortable, and that we can remove his or her part, but the agreement mainly is with the speaker.
Okay.
Okay, but of course you are right. If some attendee then he expressed or his image face was shown and he want to remove it, we can do that. That's no problem.
We probably should put a a disclaimer in our announcement and at the beginning of our sessions.
You're right.
To that effect.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Shekhar used to mention that. Bob and Shekhar used to mention that.
Right.
I mean, it will be recorded, but then it's going to be dispatched later. It will not be on any permanent recordings.
Yes, for example, like today, we have right now it's being recorded, and because Gary is the speaker, so the only agreement we need to get is from him. But of course, any attendee who doesn't feel comfortable, we can remove his or her part. But for example, next time you speak and you will be the speaker, then we need your agreement. And for the posting, it's mainly we have a YouTube channel, and then we will be also posted on our AIAA Los Angeles Las Vegas section website, and then you will be posted also on social media.
Okay. So
and,
yeah,
and
let's add that to our to the response to the invitation as well.
Okay, according to AIAA headquarters, if an event like a meeting that has no speaker, just like a meeting, everybody just, like council meeting or any meeting, no speaker, there is no agreement needed from everyone. But if it's somebody, this actually happened before, if someone feels very uncomfortable, he or she can speak out, then we can cut off, his or her during that meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. That's just housekeeping stuff. But thanks for expressing your opinion and bringing us to that that piece of obvious need.
Gary, send over my email to Ken so he can send me that information, please.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right.
Good.
Gary?
Yes.
I have an interesting piece of information. I know zilch about this housekeeping, this Zoom, but I have a grandson who's looking for a job with Zoom, and he gave me some statistics. He says before the virus, there were 20 million hits, and I don't know if that's a day or a week or whatever.
Yeah.
He said after the COVID, instead of 20, now they have 300 million hits in the same time span.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a growth industry.
Yeah. Volcanic explosive growth.
What are the chances of a presentation not being recorded with that many people?
Well, one of my cautious friends has observed that in fact the Zoom Corporation does record virtually everything that we do on Zoom. So do not do secure or confidential information on Zoom in any instance. And of course, once it goes out over the World Wide Web, you have no control of where any part of this goes. So, so indeed, it is in the parlance of patents, it is entering the public domain, and you could actually sacrifice patent rights or copyrights by presenting stuff that is not yet protected by that kinds of law and is not explicitly labeled as such. And then you go to the bad actors that don't read those fine print.
Well, that goes without saying. No, I believe I'll renege. I don't think I'll be giving the presentation on Zoom.
Okay.
It was
okay,
to the Aero Club.
We'll hold you in.
It was to the Aero Club. When the Aero Club gets to come back and meet at Torrance Airport, I'll be glad to. It's really a nice one, and I'd love to do it, but I don't want to see it on the back of Chinese cigar packages or something like that.
Oh, regarding to this, actually, I think Zoom makes some improvements. So, because some news said this information will be sent to Beijing, those kind of thing. Afterwards, I think the AIAA talked to negotiate with the Zoom or somebody. I think there's a choice. We can select the server using the local server or use international server allowed. So I think there's actually some improvement on this.
Yeah, I guess everybody read the Wall Street Journal two articles on it, and they seem to think that it's going to be a couple of years probably down the line before we have that kind of security where anything that you really want to hold on to will be protected. So I think we'll just wait until we can all meet together as the Aero Club, and I'll just hope we hold it at that.
That's fine. Yeah, I know we've got it in the can and ready to go, so that's fine.
Okay. Thanks for your meeting, Gary. I really enjoyed it. It's very, very.
Okay, I have too. And truthfully, we're just kind of filling in time just in the manner of the Aero alumni group. So many people have checked out, and I just enjoy you all. So I'm going to hang around until everybody's gone. But anytime we can make an agreement to just go ahead and time off the meeting, and if Ken needs to leave, why, you've got the plug.
Okay, thanks, Gary. I've enjoyed it very much. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Do you see your leave the meeting command?
Yeah, I see mine. I'm going to bail out too now.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I got it ready for my next meeting, so I'll sign off too. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Guido.
Right.
Life must be going slow in Pennsylvania.
All right, well, I'll sign off. Anyway, nice seeing all you guys, and good to have these virtual meetings.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ken. And once I find my own leave the meeting, I'll do that.
Okay.
There it is. Okay. Thank you so much for doing your
Oh, anytime. Great pleasure. Yeah, it's fantastic. Excellent.
Thank you.
So
Very exciting.
So
May 28th.
anyway, John Fisher was out of town from last week through Monday.
Okay.
And he offered to have a meeting at 8 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time.
Okay.
On May 28th, and I said, I don't know if I can get up for that and be ready. And I don't think that we're going to have a good attendance at that hour.
Yeah, that's too early. Yeah.
He offered 3:30 or 3
okay.
o'clock, I think it was.
Okay. Okay.
So,
okay.
So on the 28th.
Okay, we'll get it ready.
So I'll give you details of that when I get them from him.
Okay.
He'll provide the similar kind of thing. He'll have charts from the FAA point of view. His charts were those charts with the FAA with the airplane in the back in the background in the last of that presentation. So
yeah, that's cool.
So he'll put together some charts.
Excellent.
Okay. I'm checking out too.
Thanks,
Okay.
Gary,
Thank
and great meeting. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
I'll be leaving too.
Thank you.
Great. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Whoops. That's a strain. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wrong. There we go. Ah. I thought